Some stories, they don't start with once upon a time. Some stories start in darkness. And this is one of them. My name. Well, my name doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm here. Still breathing. Still standing. And that alone is a miracle. I need to tell you something. Something I've kept buried for so long that sometimes I forget it's even real. But it is real. Every word. Every scar. Every tear. And if you're watching this, maybe you need to hear it too. Maybe you're living in your own darkness right now. Maybe you think there's no way out. I promise you, there is. But first let me take you back. Back to where it all began. I grew up poor. Not just in money, but in warmth. In love. In peace. Our house wasn't a home. It was a battlefield where the war never ended. My mother spent her days drowning in cigarette smoke. I can still smell it. That thick, suffocating haze that clung to everything. The curtains. The furniture. My clothes. It was like the house itself was dying. One breath at a time. She'd sit in that old armchair, the one with the springs poking through, and she'd just disappear. Her eyes would glaze over and she'd be somewhere else. Anywhere else. And I don't blame her. Because my father spent his nights at the bottom of a bottle. When he drank, the whole house held its breath. We'd hear his truck pull up in the driveway and my heart would start racing. Would tonight be a quiet night? Or would tonight be another nightmare? Most nights, it was a nightmare. I was the oldest of 5 children. 5 kids in a house full of fear. And somehow at 7 years old I became the mother. I'd wake my siblings up for school, make them cereal with milk we'd watered down to make it last. I'd help them with homework I barely understood myself. I'd tuck them in at night singing lullabies to cover the sound of screaming downstairs. I learned to keep quiet. To move fast. To make myself invisible. Because when my father's rage was looking for a target, I made sure it found me, not them. The abuse wasn't occasional. It wasn't rare. It was the rhythm of our house. A slap for burning the toast. A shove for being too loud. A belt for talking back. And my mother? She couldn't protect us. She was barely surviving herself. I remember one night. I must have been 9 or 10. My father came home so drunk he could barely stand. He started yelling at my mother about something, I don't even remember what. And then he grabbed her by her hair. I can still hear her screams. High-pitched. Desperate. I ran into the room, this tiny little girl, and I begged him to stop. Daddy, please. Please stop. He turned to me, and he laughed. That sound, that cold, cruel laugh. It's still in my head sometimes. Then he backhanded me so hard I hit the wall. I don't remember much after that. Just darkness. That was the first time I truly understood. No one was coming to save us. Not the neighbors who heard everything through those paper-thin walls. Not the teachers who saw the bruises I tried to hide. Not God, if he was even listening. If we were going to survive. I had to figure it out myself. When I turned 14, something inside me shifted. It wasn't hope exactly. It was more like defiance. A tiny voice that whispered, this can't be all there is. I started looking at my life like a puzzle I needed to solve. How do I get out? How do I escape? The answer came on a summer day at the beach. A local vendor was renting umbrellas and chairs to tourists, and I watched him for hours. People paying cash. Simple. Quick. So I walked up to him, this scrawny 14-year-old with dirt under her nails and hope in her eyes, and I asked, do you need help? He looked at me for a long time. Then he nodded. Can you work weekends? I worked every weekend. And some weekdays too when I could sneak away. I told my parents I was at a friend's house. I told my siblings I was studying at the library. The truth? I was building my future. Every dollar bill, every handful of quarters, it all went into a tin box I hid under my mattress. I'd count it late at night when everyone was asleep. $5. $10. 20. It wasn't much. But it was mine. And it was my ticket out. For 7 years I saved in silence. I survived high school while raising my siblings. I survived my father's rage and my mother's absence. I survived every single day telling myself, just a little longer. Just a little more. And on my 18th birthday, voice trembles, I left. No party. No cake. No celebration. Just me, a duffel bag, and that tin box full of dreams. I waited until everyone was asleep. I packed the few clothes I owned. A photo of my siblings. That tin box. I stood in the doorway of my childhood home for the last time. And I didn't feel sad. I felt free. I walked out into the night and I never looked back. College was hard. God, it was so hard. But freedom was harder. I'd won the first battle, I'd escaped. But now I had to figure out how to actually live. I enrolled in community college using every penny from that tin box. I lived off campus in a tiny room I rented from an elderly woman who felt sorry for me. Some days I ate once. Maybe twice if I was lucky. Ramen noodles. Peanut butter sandwiches. Whatever was cheapest. I studied in the library because I couldn't afford electricity in my room most months. I worked 3 jobs. Waitressing, cleaning houses, tutoring kids. I slept for maybe 5 hours a night. But you know what? I was happy. Not in the way people think of happiness. Not sunshine and laughter. But in the quiet moments when I'd sit in class and realize, I did this. I got myself here. No one handed this to me. I earned it. I graduated with honors. When I walked across that stage and they handed me my diploma, I thought about that little girl in that broken house. The one who couldn't save her mother, couldn't protect her siblings, couldn't stop the pain. And I whispered to her, we made it. We actually made it. But life has a cruel sense of humor. Because just when I thought I'd finally escaped the darkness, it found me again. Only this time it was wearing a smile. His name was Richard. And at first, he seemed like a gift from God. After years of surviving on scraps, of love, of money, of safety, his attention felt like sunlight. And I was starving for it. Richard was older, established, charming. Everyone in the neighborhood loved him. He donated to animal shelters. He volunteered at women's centers. Voice drips with irony, helping women escape abuse. He had this smile. This warm, genuine smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. Our first date he brought me flowers. Roses. Real ones. No one had ever given me flowers before. He opened doors. He listened when I talked. He made me laugh. After years of feeling invisible, he made me feel seen. 3 dates turned into 3 weeks. 3 weeks turned into 3 months. And then one evening, over dinner at this nice Italian restaurant I'd never dreamed of affording, he got down on one knee. Marry me, he said. And I didn't even think. I just said yes. Because this was it. This was my fairy tale ending. All the pain had led to this. The wedding was small. Beautiful. Perfect. I wore a simple white dress from a thrift store that Richard insisted on replacing with something worthy of his bride. I should have seen it then. That need for control. But I didn't. I was too busy believing in the dream. The first crack appeared 3 weeks after the wedding. We were getting ready to go to a dinner party, some friends of his. I was wearing a dress I'd bought myself. Blue. Knee-length. Nothing revealing. Richard looked at me and said, "You're wearing that?" I laughed. What's wrong with it? His smile didn't reach his eyes. It's just a little attention-seeking, don't you think? My wife should dress with more class. My wife. Not you. Not my name. My wife. Like a possession. I changed. I didn't want to cause problems. That was my first mistake. Because once I showed him I'd bend, he never stopped pushing. It started small. Comments about my clothes. My hair. My makeup. You don't need to wear lipstick, honey. You look better natural. Why are you talking to that guy at the store? Do you know him? You spend too much time with your college friends. They're a bad influence. Slowly, quietly he cut me off from everyone. And I didn't even notice it happening. The first time he hit me. Long pause. I almost didn't believe it was real. We'd been married for 6 months. I'd burned dinner. The chicken was dry and I'd forgotten to buy his favorite beer. He came home after a long day and I could see he was tense. "Dinner ready?" he called out. "Yes. Just plating it now." I set his plate down, nervous, hoping he wouldn't notice the chicken. He cut into it. Took a bite. His jaw clenched. "This is garbage." "I'm sorry, He threw the plate across the room. It shattered against the wall and I just stood there, frozen. Then he stood up and his hand connected with my face so hard I saw stars. I fell to the ground and he stood over me, breathing hard. Then he started crying. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me. Work has been so stressful. I didn't mean it. Please forgive me." And I did. I forgave him. Because he seemed so broken. So sorry. And because some part of me, that little girl who'd grown up with violence, thought, this is just what love looks like. But it didn't stop. It never stops. When I became pregnant, I thought maybe this would change things. Maybe a baby would soften him. Maybe the man I fell in love with was still in there somewhere, buried under the anger. I was wrong. When Angelo was born, the house got even darker. Richard hated the crying. He hated the sleepless nights. He hated how my attention was no longer only on him. Can't you make him shut up? He'd snap. I'm trying, he's just. Try harder. One night, Angelo wouldn't stop crying. He was 3 months old. Colicky. In pain. I was rocking him, singing to him, trying everything. Richard stormed into the nursery, his face twisted with rage. Give him to me. Richard, no, he's just. He ripped Angelo from my arms so violently that I screamed. He held my baby boy, this tiny precious thing, and shook him. Shut up. I don't remember moving. But suddenly I was between him and Angelo and I was screaming. Don't you touch him. Don't you ever touch my son. He stared at me. And then he smiled. That cold, cruel smile I'd seen on my father's face so many years ago. He handed Angelo back to me, gentle as could be. Of course not, darling. I would never hurt our son. Then he punched me in the stomach so hard I couldn't breathe. I managed to keep holding Angelo. I don't know how. I stumbled to the nursery, locked the door, and collapsed on the floor. And as I rocked my crying baby, I whispered, "You're safe. Mommy is here. You are safe." Even though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. The years blurred together after that. 16 years of surviving. 16 years of pretending. Richard's abuse followed patterns. He'd come home late, smelling of perfume that wasn't mine. Sometimes he'd ignore me completely, the silent treatment lasting days. Those were the good days. The bad days. He'd find any reason to hurt me. Dinner was too cold. The house wasn't clean enough. I looked at him wrong. I hid bruises with makeup. I hid the pain with fake smiles at PTA meetings. I became a ghost in my own life. But Angelo. Voice softens. Angelo was my light. My beautiful, sensitive, artistic boy. He'd draw pictures for me. Write me little notes saying, "I love you, Mommy." He was everything good in that house of darkness. And then one night, everything changed. Angelo was 16 when he came to me. It was late. Richard was passed out drunk in his office. My son knocked softly on my bedroom door. "Mom, can I talk to you?" I could hear the fear in his voice. This trembling, uncertain fear. "Of course, baby. Come here." He sat next to me on the bed and he wouldn't look at me. His hands were shaking. "Mom, I need to tell you something. Anything. You can tell me anything. I like boys, Mom. I'm gay." And in that moment I saw myself. That terrified child, afraid to speak, afraid to be herself. I took his face in my hands and I looked into his eyes. "Angelo, you are perfect. Exactly as you are. Do you hear me? Perfect." He started crying. I started crying. And we held each other, and for just a moment, there was nothing but love in that broken house. But Richard found out. I don't know how. Maybe he overheard. Maybe he saw something. But 3 days later he confronted Angelo at dinner. "I heard an interesting rumor about you, son." Angelo froze. I froze. "Dad, are you one of those faggots?" The word hung in the air like poison. "Richard, don't. Shut your mouth." He turned back to Angelo, his face twisted with disgust. "Answer me, boy. Are you?" Angelo, my brave, beautiful boy, lifted his chin. "Yes." Richard stood up so fast his chair fell over. "You're a disgrace. An abomination. You are not my son." "Richard, stop it." He grabbed Angelo by the shirt and dragged him to the door. Get out. Get out of my house. I have no son." Angelo looked at me, terror in his eyes. And I ran to him. I stood between them. "No. If he goes, I go." Richard stared at me. And then he laughed. "Fine. Leave. Both of you. Let's see how far you get without me." That night I packed bags for Angelo and me. But when I looked at my son, I saw the fear in his eyes. The same fear I'd carried for 34 years. And something inside me finally, truly broke. Not in the way it used to, not the breaking of defeat. This was the breaking of awakening. I couldn't run anymore. I had been running my whole life. From my father. From my past. From my pain. And it always found me. So this time, I stayed. I sent Angelo to live with my sister in another state. And I stayed. Because I realized something. The only way out was through. After Angelo left, I started volunteering at the women's shelter. The same one Richard used for his public image. He was so pleased. That's my girl. Giving back to the community. He had no idea what I was really doing. I was learning. Learning from lawyers who volunteered there. Learning about restraining orders, financial independence, documentation. I was building a case piece by piece. One of the women there gave me a small green stone. Malachite. It's for transformation, she said. For healing. For reclaiming what's yours. I kept it in my pocket. And whenever Richard screamed, whenever I felt small, I'd grip that stone and whisper. I am still here. I am still here. I started documenting everything. Photos of bruises. Recordings of his threats. Copies of bank statements showing his affairs. I opened a secret bank account. Started saving. Just like when I was 14. Only this time I wasn't saving to run. I was saving to rebuild. And then, life did something unexpected. Richard lost his job. His company downsized, and suddenly the powerful man who'd controlled everything started crumbling. The rage got worse at first. He'd scream about respect, about loyalty, about everything falling apart. But slowly, he grew weak. Bitter. Desperate. And for the first time, he needed me. He'd ask for help with bills. For money. For care. And I gave it. Quietly. Calmly. Not out of love. Out of something else entirely. I watched him crumble day by day. The man who'd made me feel so small was becoming smaller himself. And I realized, I no longer feared him. Every scar, every tear, every bruise I once covered with makeup and shame, had turned into armor. When Richard finally passed away, a heart attack at 62, people called him a good man. They said he'd helped so many people. That he was generous, kind. At his funeral, person after person stood up and praised him. And I sat there silent, that malachite stone in my hand. When it was my turn to speak, I walked to the front. I looked at all those faces and I smiled faintly. Richard did what he could with what he had. He taught me many things. How to survive. How to endure. And ultimately, how to be free. I didn't expose him. I didn't burn his legacy. I simply let go. Because holding on to hate would have been just another prison. And I'd been in prison long enough. After Richard died, I did something I'd been too afraid to do for years. I called Angelo. He was 23 then. Living his life free and authentic. The phone rang twice. 3 times. Hello. And I broke down. Angelo. It's Mom. The silence on the other end felt eternal. Then quietly. Hi, Mom. We talked for 3 hours that first night. I apologized. I explained. I cried. And he forgave me. Mom, I never blamed you. I was just waiting for you to be ready. It took time. Years actually. Rebuilding trust doesn't happen overnight. But love has a way of healing what shame once broke. Today Angelo and I talk every week. He's engaged to a wonderful man named Marcus. And when they visit, when I see my son happy and free, I know it was all worth it. Every painful step. Every terrifying moment. I volunteer full-time now at the women's shelter. I help women who are still living in the kind of silence I once knew. When they look at me broken, scared, hopeless and ask, how did you do it? I take their hands and I tell them, you don't have to win the war in one day. You just have to take back one piece of yourself at a time. Maybe today you speak up once. Maybe tomorrow you hide a little money. Maybe next week you make a phone call. Each piece you reclaim is a victory. And one day you'll look back and realize, you did it. You're free. That malachite stone? It sits in my living room now inside a glass box. Not as a trophy. Not as revenge. But as a reminder. That sometimes, the greatest power you can have is walking away without hate in your heart. I'm not telling you this story to make you pity me. I'm telling you because someone out there is watching this right now and they're living in their own nightmare. Maybe it's your father's house. Maybe it's your partner's rage. Maybe it's your own mind telling you you're not worthy of better. And I need you to hear this. You are worthy. You are strong. You deserve peace. No matter how dark it gets, there's always a light waiting inside you. It might be faint, buried under fear and shame, but it's there. I promise you it's there. And when you finally choose yourself, truly, completely choose yourself, that light becomes a fire that nothing can extinguish. So if you're stuck right now, if you're scared, if you're silent, please, hold on. You're stronger than you think. You've survived every bad day so far. And one day soon you'll wake up and realize, you didn't just survive. You rose. My name is Sarah. And I'm still here. Still rising. And so will you.